on the 1978 450. Checking here, we've got a little bit of wobble, not bad. It's kind of hard to gauge with me shaking the phone. Steering seems pretty tight though. One thing I've noticed, this here, let me get my flashlight because it's hard to see. That there with the holes in it, that is your charcoal canister. I'm gonna blow through that, make sure it's free flowing. If it's not, we'll have to replace it. I could probably actually clean it if it's not free flowing. We will check that though. That can cause some hesitation, rough idle issues. We'll double check to make sure that is not the case here. As you can see, there's a lot of oil underneath this. This is likely due to the valve cover gasket we've discussed, but it is everywhere. I'm also assuming this is mixed with fuel, as the fuel leak is pretty substantial. And you can see up in there, everything is just really soaked. There's your headers there. I did clean this off yesterday with some degreaser. You can see where it hit some of the upper spots. Got those pretty clean, so after we fix the oil leaks, we'll go ahead and clean that up. But yeah, the whole back of the engine, everything is just soaked here, and that will eventually deteriorate all these rubbers. As you can see right there, that boot is cracked, so that doesn't have a whole lot longer left until it starts to wear out. But as the car is not driven in snow and whatnot, that will extend the life of it. That said, it's not too much corrosion. All in all, this is pretty clean. Looks like a factory exhaust, which is rare to find. But as far as the undercarriage goes, this car looks really nice. I don't see anything that's cause for concern. It looks completely factory. All these lines, those have never been replaced, which is a sign that this car doesn't really have any rust. That too, if this thing had been in the salt and snow, that would be a huge hole. So that said, it's a real solid car. I think the rear shocks, due to the sagging, I think the rear shocks could use replaced, although they don't feel bad. I think the sagging's more to do with these worn out old springs. You know, the car's been around for 42 years. It's going to have a little bit of sagging in the springs. The brakes, obviously you can't see anything from the inside, but they do look decent. The rotors look decent. Pull off the wheels, check the pads, see what we're like there. There's a bleeder valve, no cap on that. We'll have to do that. We do need to bleed the brakes. Actually, we need to flush the whole system because the brake fluid is black, and you don't want to mess around with bad brake fluid. A little contamination in there makes it really spongy. A lot of contamination makes the brakes fail. So we will go ahead and flush the brakes. Not sure if there's a boot on the shock there. It's hard to see. Shocks are pretty cheap. I think it's like $150 for some new KYBs for the rear. And then naturally, if we're going to do the springs, do the shocks, and that boot all at once. Pulling them all out of there, do them all at once. The boots on the CVs look pretty good. I don't hear any clunking, so no reason to mess with those. Likely, actually, I don't know if those are original or not. Those are OEM. Original, maybe not. A little bit of leak on the rear diff here, but not bad. I will pull this, check your fluid. I'm pretty sure these are just dip test. If your finger touches it, you got fluid. If not, you need to add some. But since the leak does appear to be quite minimal, I generally avoid pulling seals. Best not to interfere unless you think you really need to. Again, first do no harm. Your e-brake was working well. All your cables are still intact. Springs there, all good there. I don't see any undercarriage damage on this car at all. This thing has it's been pretty well maintained. That said, we will get back once we see anything else. Oh, the fuel pump. This is an OEM fuel pump. Clearly not original. But I'm assuming they probably replaced this when they were trying to diagnose the stumble in the engine. New line there, well, new clamp at least, probably a new line. So they did try to mess with the fuel system. They just kind of didn't know what they were doing and put a pressure regulator in place on the warm-up, and that warm-up regulator takes care of the pressure on its own, as the name would suggest. So again, that should be the issue with the fuel system, leak on top of it. So a couple issues there, all of which should be quite easy to fix.